On Law Weekly today, we discuss some issues surrounding the sittings of the Lagos State Panel on Restitution for Victims of SARS and other related matters. We talked to a member of the panel, rights activist Ebunolu Adegboruwa, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. In Kwara State, the Chief Judge has called on the rich to actively partner with government to develop the country. We also have our recap of the top trending stories from the courtrooms. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Shola Shieli. After monitoring the Occupy Lekki tollgate protest, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Ebunolu Adegboruwa, put out a statement condemning the arrest, detention, and dehumanization of the protesters who showed up. He also hinted that he would reconsider his continued participation on the panel. He has since consulted with his constituency, the civil society, and returned to the panel. In this interview, we look at some of the issues that led to the dissenting judgment opposing the return of the Lekki tollgates to the concession company, the fears expressed in some quarters that the panel may not have enough time or even the independence to do its job, and much more.
It became important and necessary to reconsider a lot of issues arising in respect of the NSAS judicial panel set up by Lagos State. It was important that we do some kind of sober reflection, especially as regards issues relating to quorum, issues relating to jurisdiction of the panel, and especially the controversies that greeted the decision in respect of Lekki Concession Company, which sort of divided members of the panel. And since I was nominated on the panel as a representative of civil society, it was important for me to give a kind of feedback to my constituency and then seek their own take on whether or not one should continue to function in the panel in view of the apparent divisions that emanated from that Lekki Concession Company case. And of course I did that. And when I say civil society, we're talking about human rights activists. We talked about the various organizations, Campaign for Democracy, Committee for Defense of Human Rights, Civil Liberties, MBA, and indeed prominent lawyers and activists. And I consulted widely, and the general opinion was that it was necessary to interface with the government that set up the panel and nominated us into the panel about the difficulties we were having, and that if after such interface we do not seem to get some kind of assurance concerning our own fears, it will be important to then take a decision whether to continue or not. You know that as of the time we delivered the ruling in respect of Lekki Concession Company, the panel had only had about less than 100 petitions out of about 235, and we had 6 months tenure. So it was important to liaise with the government to find out their thinking in respect of the tenure of the panel, because at the time of inauguration, the governor of Lagos State had hinted to us that the 6 months was just an interim tenure, and that if the work of the panel requires an extension, the government was open to
granting it.
Yes, so if from the feelers we were getting, the governor was no longer disposed to granting such tenure, it will appear that some petitioners may be hard done in that their fate may be sealed, as their petitions may not be heard. But having encouraged people, to put in their petitions, we felt that it was going to be very unfair to shut out the door against them, because we were talking about healing wounds and compensating people for brutality and police abuses. And so I met with the Honorable Attorney General and discussed on a lot of issues. And I sort of got some kind of assurance that the independence of the panel was guaranteed, and the assurance also that Lagos State government was going to appear before the panel, and that the issue of extension, is something that the government has not taken a decision upon. It will be based on the work of the panel, the progress made so far, and that will determine the response of government to that. And then also the issue of the compensation. Government has set aside 200 million naira, as initial fund for compensation, and with over 200 petitions, we're thinking that it will be necessary for us to review, that amount, in terms of the quantum of damages that the panel would like to award, so that we don't, exhaust before we finish the petitions. And we were able to get some kind of assurances that the government was prepared, to pay if the panel will recommend. So as it is, I have since also then given a feedback of that meeting to my constituency, and the feeling is that it is necessary for us to finish the work that has started.
I also wanted to talk about, one of the issues that you also raised in that statement that you put out last weekend. Because it is worrisome to a lot of people, and you also alluded to it in that statement, that fresh assaults continue to be perpetrated by the police, as we saw at that Occupy Lekki Tollgate protest of February 13. It does not appear, in your own words, that our security agents have learned anything from the NSAS protest and the agitations for an end to brutality and respect for fundamental rights. How did the AG say that the government will address this issue?
I think it was one of the points that I raised with the Honorable Attorney General, especially in respect of government involvement in breach of the rights of the people. He gave me the assurance that the Lagos State government was willing to accommodate and respect the rights of citizens, but their concern is about where you exercise that right to infringe on the right of others, such as maybe there is a common highway where people ordinarily should have access, and then there's an attempt to block and restrain people's movement, so that your right to protest should not hinder people from going about their lawful activities, and then the possibility of others who have various other intentions in adulterating such a noble intention. For me, generally, it is become clear that it's a long road that we have to go in respect of getting government, especially the executive arm of government, to respect the rights of people. The right to protest is fundamental. The right to movement, the right to assembly, the right to freedom of expression and the press are things that we should not be begging government to observe. Well, the police issues are quite deep-seated. We have taken time to try to dig into the psychology of the kind of responses that the police give to civilians. Those issues are very deep. It goes to issues of welfare. It goes to issues of transferred aggression on the part of the police to the civil populace. It goes to the issue of the origin of the police itself as an occupation force that was initiated by the colonialists to subjugate our people, to pay tax, and to stop them from agitating for independence. So the police still see the uniform and the gun as an instrument of subjugation and oppression, to the extent that I'm sure you know policemen who patronize public transport don't like to pay for fares, and then they expect that once you see a policeman in uniform, you should just give immediate obedience to whatever directive is given. So to tackle those matters require proper restructuring for the police. And that's why we think that the activities of the panel should not be limited to just hearing petitions. We want to have the opportunity to engage the hierarchy of the police and be able to make suggestions that will enable them embrace a civil populace without the casualties that we experience, where people shoot citizens because of 20 naira, because of 50 naira, so that people then become more friendly and do not see the opportunity of uniform and holding the gun as an instrument of coercion going forward. But it's not a matter that you hope to end within the period of the existence of the panel. So we're escalating it to the civil society, engaging with the legislators in terms of amending the Police Act, even as of 2020, to be able to accommodate the rights of our people going forward.
I want to come back to what you said about restitution, helping the people find justice and move forward. Many Nigerians still have issues with this order for the repossession of the LCCI. One of the things that came out was that LCCI did not fully cooperate and open up its servers to the forensic investigators. For people who really don't trust the government, and the government owns LCCI, what is your message to them? How do we move past that? How do we trust the government with the continued work of the panel?
I think maybe I must say there must have been some communication error in respect of our complaint about Lekki Concession Company cooperating with our forensic experts. The response we got from the expert was that it was important for them to authenticate the source of the CCTV footages. But as I speak, a forensic analysis of those footages have been done and submitted. It's not that in itself hindered the work of the expert from what he presented to us in terms of the demonstrations that he made to us. And we have since our interaction with the forensic team been able to cover some of those loopholes by which we then directed a further review, and we are awaiting the final report of the expert. So it's not like the SCC totally then frustrated the work of the forensic person, but the work would have been made easier if they had their own independent access to the server. But notwithstanding that, they have been able to do a fantastic job in terms of the analysis, and we were quite impressed by ourselves with the work done by the experts. So I don't think people should be disillusioned or discouraged from that piece of information. We as panel members have been able to piece them together, and we have more or less been able to take advantage of what we needed for our own work. All the rulings delivered and decisions taken in respect of LCC presently are interlocutory, and it's not the final report of the panel. It's just a matter of repossession of the toll gate, which one way or the other has caused so much controversy. And I believe that at the end of the day, our recommendations may end up surprising Nigerians. So maybe I will say, let us wait and see.
But can you tell us, so far, if there's anything that suggests that there was a massacre at Lekki Toll Gate on the 20th of October, before the panel, if there's anything that suggests that?
Well, honestly, it's like I said, we're at the interlocutory stage of our life at the panel. We're listening to the stories of the petitioners who alleged that they have suffered one injury or the other. We have listened to the Nigerian Army. We still hope to listen to them more. We're going to listen to the Lagos State government, which has some allegations pending, and we have listened to the officials of the Lekki Concession Company itself. We're already listening to the hospitals that treated people who had gunshot wounds. And we have close to 10 petitions relating to Lekki Toll Gate incident still pending before the panel. So I think that it's for us to weigh the evidence that we have and look at the documents and put them on the imaginary scale. And if we are satisfied on the preponderance of evidence, that on the balance of probabilities, we should be able to come to a definite conclusion whether there was indeed a massacre at Lekki Toll Gate on the 20th. But for now, it's hasty and premature to make those conclusions as we are still listening to the cases of the petitioners. We have not even started with Lagos State and some other respondents. So our duty will be to speak the truth. And that was the reason, one of the reasons why I had to meet with the Attorney General, to get an assurance that the panel remains independent and that we are free to make our conclusions, and that there's an assurance that government will respect our decisions, not just that we're on a frolic or just wasting our time.
And government will appear before the panel?
Oh, surely.
Because one of the things that also came out was that the camcorder, was the camera that the former governor of Lagos State took at that point, has not been submitted to the panel.
The Honorable Attorney General gave me those assurances, and I have no reason to doubt. In fact, he went so far as saying that they had actually had pre-trial conference with their lawyers in preparation for the invitation by the panel.
What about the military? Any indication that they are still going to come back?
We have taking the military to be that there's been a change of guard, a new person is in charge, and so we have dispatched fresh summons respecting the office of the Chief of Army Staff, and we thought that it was better to give them a little time for him to settle down and be able to take a decision in respect of our invitation.
So far we've not heard, the panel hasn't heard anything from them yet? Yes,
I think we gave them a long date in order to accommodate the change of baton in the military. So I think it's going to be towards the end of February. We gave them a long date. So we can't actually decide now to say the military will appear or they will not appear. We're expecting them.
Welcome back. Sticking with the judicial panel, let's bring you a quick recap of what's transpired at some of them.
We're sticking with the Lagos panel, which has begun awarding compensation to deserving petitioners. On Friday, 2 petitioners, the family of late Kudirat Abayomi and Hannah Olugbodi, were awarded 10 million naira compensation each based on the panel's recommendation. The panel also recommended the prosecution of the erring police officer, grant of scholarship and letter of apology from the police to the family of the deceased, and training for police officers to avoid a repeat of extrajudicial killings.
We had come here with the hope that we're going to get something substantial. We asked for a certain figure, we got far lesser than we got, but at least we're in a position to say, well, taking stock of all that's happened, we can, thank God and thank the panel for at least giving a case a good consideration.
We can never bring back my mom, but at least it's still something. But it lets us to believe in the system, in the panel, and this is to also rekindle the lost hope. Because after I diminish, I know what I face. I know what the family are facing.
In Anambra State, 5 members of the judicial panel have resigned. The 5 youth panelists cite inefficiency, poor organization, and a complete failure to provide funding to enhance logistics and secretarial functions of the panel as reasons for the resignation. According to one of the youth leaders, Mr. Chijioke Fediora, in spite of more than 250 petitions that are unattended to and numerous inquiries on when the panel will commence hearing, the state government has shown no signs of interest in the activities of the panel, and for that they are dissociating themselves from the charade put up by the state government. And in Abia State, the judicial panel has inspected more than 5 houses which were allegedly razed down by police during the Degema Street crisis in 2019. The visit aims to get first-hand information as well as access to the level of damage and its consequential effect on owners of the property and residents alike. Residents of the community are confident that the recommendations of the panel following its visit will restore hope and proffer the needed solution to avert mayhem and future attacks and reprisals.
In Kwara State, the Chief Judge has made a case for the rich to collaborate with government to develop the country. He identified the lack of autonomy as one of the major challenges of the judiciary. He made these comments at the opening of a magistrate court in the state.
Members of the executive, the judiciary, lawyers, and the host community in the state are gathered here for the opening of this magistrate court in the Jagbo-Onyun local government area. The court had been in a dilapidated state and was abandoned for years, but it's now being refurbished because of the need to bring justice closer to the people, especially the 4 communities it will serve. At the opening of the court, the Chief Judge of the state and the Senior Advocate of Nigeria identified the lack of autonomy and scarcity of funds as major challenges confronting the judiciary in the discharge of their duties.
So the first thing is that the problem of autonomy for the judiciary. We don't have that autonomy, we don't have control over our funds. And it's left for individual governors to be benevolent, to approve what is in the budget for the judiciary. But if you have autonomy, then the judiciary will be able to determine what it needs and how to spend what is given to it. So we have the major problem is lack of autonomy, then paucity of funds to execute some of these projects. And it's all over. Or they have challenged it in the Supreme Court. They have challenged the validity of that 10. And because it's still before the Supreme Court, it's not been decided one way or the other. So I can't make further comments on that aspect of it. It's still pending before the Supreme Court.
We must all come to terms with the unpleasant reality of the times, that government cannot do it alone in terms of provision of infrastructure. With constant increase in population, needs and demands from government, it is clear that the government's resources, no matter how stretched, cannot cater for all our needs. We must, therefore, be ready to assist the government in providing some of these good things of life.
And on the home stretch, we bring you a recap of some of the activities from the courtrooms.
We begin with the report that a federal high court in Abuja, presided over by Justice Ahmed Mohammed, has turned down an ex parte application seeking to restrain Mr. Mohammed Adamu from parading himself as the Inspector General of Police pending the hearing and determination of the suit challenging the elongation of his tenure. Justice Mohammed held that since parties have been served with the originating processes, it will be unfair to grant an interim injunction against the Inspector General of Police. Justice Mohammed has fixed the 24th of February to hear the suit. In another case, the Office of the Inspector General of Police has filed charges against a former governor of Imo State, Mr. Ikedion Hakim, over alleged harassment of one Chinyere Amuchinwa. The former governor, who was to be arraigned alongside Chinedu Okpareke, who was the first defendant before a federal high court in Abuja, however failed to appear in court following the inability of the prosecutor to serve him with the hearing notice. According to the charge, the defendants were said to have threatened to release a nude photograph of Chinyere Amuchinwa if she fails to drop a charge of attempted kidnap made against her. Justice Taiwo has fixed the 3rd of March 2021 for arraignment and possible trial. In Owerri, the Imo State capital, a state high court has nullified the impeachment of a former deputy governor of the state, Jude Agbaso. He was impeached on March 28, 2013, during the Rochas Okorocha administration. In Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital, a high court has sentenced a young man to death by hanging for the 2017 murder of a delivery agent with an online marketing store, Jumia. The convict, Shodianye Mbatumukeke, was arrested alongside his friends, Divine Excel and Joy Elua, for the murder of the delivery agent, Chukuma Eleje, who was said to have delivered expensive smartphones, which they ordered online, to the convict's apartment before he was attacked and killed. His body was recovered in a septic tank in the apartment of Ada George Road in the Obiakpo local government area of Rivers State on March 27, 2017. The female suspect, Joy Elua, said to be the girlfriend of the convict, was however released while the two male suspects went on trial. Judgment is coming 4 years after the crime was committed. Justice Chigwezi Igwe found Mbatumeke guilty on 2 counts of murder and armed robbery. The judge described the murder as gruesome and hopes the sentence will serve as a deterrent to others. The second defendant was however discharged and acquitted. And we round off with the report that the prosecution team has tendered video evidence to back up their case in the Offa bank robbery. In the video, the 5 suspects could be seen confessing to the crime. They said they were co-opted into the crime by the late Michael Adiku, a dismissed policeman. The video was said to have been recorded at the police headquarters in Abuja. Justice Halima Salman has admitted 3 digital video discs and adjourned to 15th and 16th of March.
And that's our program this week. Don't forget that you can find these and past episodes of the program on our YouTube page. I'm Shola Shieli. Thank you for watching and see you next week.